Okay, math kiddos, here we go, here we go. We are on lesson 8, notes, NS8. That means this is the last one before we have an actual test. So, on your notes, put your name, and if you're Miss Sissel student, put your roster number. If you're Miss Armstrong's, that's where your date goes. What we're going to do is we're going to be comparing and ordering rational numbers. Now, we've been talking about the number system and all the different categories, and this last category that we really focused on is rational numbers, which we know is basically every number, including fractions and decimals. So we're specifically just looking at fractions and decimals right now, rational numbers. And wants us to fill in the missing decimals or fractions. So here we go. It's, I don't know, this may be a secret to you, and I'm going to just kind of break it to you gently. Decimals are easier. Okay? There you go. So looking at this number line, we've got a 0 and a 1. So all of our numbers are bigger than 0 but smaller than 1. Yep, that would be fractions and decimals every time. Now they've got decimals on the top, fractions on the bottom, and so this shows us that they're equivalent. If this is 2/10, what do you think this is? All right then, we'll call it 1/10, 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, which is 3/10, 0.4, 0.5, 0.6, which look is 3/5. Ooh, we're getting tricky now. 0.7, 0.8, 0.9, which is 9/10. So we've got equivalent fractions underneath. Basically, just like I said, this isn't really 0.1. That's literally what you wrote, but what you say is 1/10. And you can write 1/10 as a decimal or as a fraction, but either one of these, it's actually said as 1/10. So if this is 1/10, what is this? Very good, 2/10. Then we've got 3/10. Oh, wait a minute. Oh! Wait a minute. Stop. Hold it. Pen down. I'm going to grab a different color, because this is what I want you to notice. 2/10 is not reduced. What can I reduce 2/10 to? Okay, now that you've had a little discussion time, I can divide 2 and 10, both of them, by 2. So 2 divided by 2 is 1, and 10 divided by 2 is 5. So notice that whenever we get to an even number as our numerator, we're going to reduce and have 5 as our denominator instead of 10. So instead of 4/10, if this is 1/5, we would have 2/5. Very good. And then this is 5/10. But we're not going to write 5/10, are we? Because 5/10 is actually 1/2. Very good. And then we have 3/5, because notice we went 1/5, 2/5, 3/5. So this is going to be, looking up here, 7/10. And then this is 8/10, but it's going to become, very good, 4/5, and then 9/10. Now here is a tricky question. Which decimal is equivalent to 1/4? 1/4, and they even stuck it right in there. They showed you it's going to be right there. So it's between 2 and 3. Well, if we're talking about 1/4, that's 1/4. Wait a minute. If we think about money, what is 1/4? Yeah, 25 cents. Okay, half of 50 cents. Ha ha ha. Nobody got it. Okay, 0.25. He's half a wrapper. Okay, I'm sorry. That's a bad joke. 0.25 goes right in between there. Okay? So now let's look at looking at greater than, less than, or equal to. You're going to want to keep looking at your number line when you do this. So, 0.2 and 1/2. Well, here's 0.2, and here's 1/2. Who's bigger? 1/2 is. So, boom! There we go. 3/5 and 4/10. Well, 3/5 is here, and 4/10 is right here. So, who's bigger? 6/10, which is 3/5. Boom. Not bad. 7/10 compared to 4/5. Oh, looks like 4/5 has got it just a little bit more. And then 0.5 and 1/2. Duh, Miss Sissel, those are equal. Okay, so here's the secret. When you're dealing with fractions and decimals together in the same problem, when you're trying to put them in order, you want to either convert the fractions to equivalent decimals, or the decimals to equivalent fractions. You want to make sure that you have all of the same thing. If you like fractions, then change everything into a fraction. If you like decimals better, then change them all into decimals. Make sure you're working with the same thing each time, and you're going to make it much easier on yourself. Okay? So here's an example. We're going to order these numbers right here from greatest to least. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to write the fractions as equivalent decimals. Okay? I could do it the other way around and write the decimals as fractions, but we're going to go with it this way. So if I have 1/2, that's going to equal 0.5. And again, you can keep looking up here at your number line. That's why it's there. It's part of your notes. Keep using your notes. Okay? 1/4 we know is 0.25. And 3/4, well, if 1/4 is 0.25, because it's like a quarter, what would 3/4 be? Yep, 75 cents. There we go. Now, we can put them all on a number line, and then once they're on the number line, we can write them in order from biggest to smallest. Our first number here, what's our smallest number? 0.2. And then we've got 0.25. And then 3/10 and 4/10. And then, oh, I should write this. This is 1/4 because originally our number was 1/4. So even though we converted it to 0.25, we need to remember that it's really 1/4 as a fraction, so that when we write everything down here, we write the 1/4 and not the 0.25. Very important that you always write down the original numbers in your answer, not your converted numbers. So this one would be 0.5, which is 1/2, because we had 1/2. And then what's next? Yep, 0.6. If this is 7 and this is 8, yep, 7/5, which is really 3/4. And then 0.8 they already did for us, but I'm going to write it in blue so that I remember that that's ours. Okay, now we're going to write it in order from greatest to least. So the biggest number we had was 0.8. 0.8. And let's see, can you see that? It's not too bad. Okay, 0.8, and then we had 3/4. Remember, I said write the fraction because that's what we had originally. So 3/4. Then we had 6/10. Then we had 1/2. And then we have 1/4. And then we have 0.2. And that's writing it from greatest to least. Cool, huh? All right. It's time to flip it, flip it. You want to flip it, flip it. Let's just do flip it, flip it. All right, sorry. I had to do that. I'm sorry. I just couldn't resist. Which set of fractions represent the order of least to greatest? Okay? So, we have a whole boatload of fractions. And this is why I think decimals are easier. Decimals only have one denominator. It's tens, hundreds, thousands. Way easier to deal with. 10, base 10, 10, 100, 1,000. This we've got like everything. So I've got a 32, a 16, an 8, a 16, a 32, and a 2. Well, I know that the denominator I'm going to have to use is 32. Because 2 can go into 32, and 16 can become 32, and 8 can become 32. So, 9 32s, now we have 5 16ths. Well, to make 16 30, we multiply by 2, so this is going to become 10 32s, 32. And then 3 8s. Well, 8 times 4 is 32, so 3 times 4 is 12 32s. So far we're going up, up, that's good. Now, 16 times 2 is 32. So 7 times 2 is 14. 32s, oh, they might have been nice to us and given us A as the answer. 15 32s, well, we're not going to do anything to that. And then 1/2, well, that's 16 32s, because 2 times 16 is 32. 9, 10, 12, 14, 15, 16. Look at that. We got the right answer first. Yay! I didn't have to do more than just one thing. I know, you're excited too. The workers at the jewelry shop make 100 necklaces every week. The table shows how many necklaces each worker makes. So Jane makes 2/20ths, Sam 30%, Eliza 1/5, and Mark 4/10. Which list shows the amount of necklaces made in order from greatest to least? So now I can do it my way, and I can turn them all into decimals. So 2/20ths would be 1/10, right? 0.1. 30%. Well, that's cool. All we have to do is move the decimal over 1, 2 places. 0.3. 1/5 is 2/10, and 4/10 is just boom. Ha! Look at that. So Mark makes more, and then Sam, and then Eliza, and then Jane. I hope that's not, oh, that's a whole nother thing. Okay. So we want to go 2/10 first, or 2/20ths first, right there. So it's got to be B because it's the only one that has that. Ta-da! So let's just check. Second would be 1/5. Third would be 30%. And fourth, yep, that's it. Okay, so now get the math practice, get going on it, and then we can begin reviewing and studying for our very first no-note test. See you later. Return to me with joy and honor.